Chapter 32 of Lorna Doone. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Michelle Harris. Lorna Doone by R.D. Blackmore. Chapter 32. Feeding of the Pigs. The story told by John Fry that night, and my conviction of its truth, made me very uneasy, especially as following upon the warnings of Judge Jeffreys, and the hints received from Jeremy Stickles, and the outburst of the tanner at Dunster, as well as sundry tales and rumours, and signs of secret understanding seen and heard on market days, and at places of entertainment. We knew for certain that at Taunton, Bridgewater, and even Dulverton, there was much disaffection towards the King, and regret for the days of the Puritans. Albeit I had told the truth, and the pure and simple truth, when, upon my examination, I had assured his lordship that to the best of my knowledge there was nothing of the sort with us. But now I was beginning to doubt whether I might not have been mistaken, especially when we heard, as we did, of arms being landed at Lynmouth in the dead of the night, and of the tramp of men having reached some one's ears, from a hill where a famous echo was. For it must be plain to any conspirator, without the example of the Doones, that for the secret muster of men, and the stowing of unlawful arms, and communication by beacon lights, scarcely a fitter place could be found than the wilds of Exmoor, with deep ravines running far inland from an unwatched and mostly a sheltered sea. For the channel from Countisbury Foreland up to Minehead, or even farther, though rocky and gusty and full of currents, is safe from great rollers and the sweeping power of the south-west storms, which prevail with us more than all the others, and make sad work on the opposite coast. But even supposing it probable that something against King Charles the Second, or rather against his Roman advisers, and especially his brother, were now in preparation amongst us, was it likely that Master Huckaback, a wealthy man and a careful one, known moreover to the Lord Chief Justice, would have anything to do with it? To this I could make no answer. Uncle Ben was so close a man, so avaricious and so revengeful, that it was quite impossible to say what course he might pursue, without knowing all the chances of gain or rise or satisfaction to him. That he hated the Papists I knew full well, though he never spoke much about them; also that he had followed the march of Oliver Cromwell's army, but more as a sutler, people said, than as a real soldier; and that he would go a long way, and risk a great deal of money, to have his revenge on the Doones, although their name never passed his lips during the present visit. But how was it likely to be as to the Doones themselves? Which side would they probably take in the coming movement, if movement indeed it would be? So far as they had any religion at all, by birth they were Roman Catholics; so much I knew from Lorna; and indeed it was well known all around that a priest had been fetched more than once to the valley, to soothe some poor outlaw's departure. On the other hand, they were not likely to entertain much affection for the son of the man who had banished them and confiscated their property; and it was not at all impossible that desperate men, such as they were, having nothing to lose but estates to recover, and not being held by religion much, should cast away all regard for the birth from which they had been cast out, and make common cause with a Protestant rising, for the chance of revenge and replacement. However, I do not mean to say that all these things occurred to me as clearly as I have set them down; only that I was in general doubt, and very sad perplexity. For mother was so warm and innocent, and kind so to every one, that knowing some little by this time of the English constitution, I feared very greatly lest she should be punished for harbouring malcontents. As well as possible I knew that if any poor man came to our door and cried, "Officers are after me, for God's sake take and hide me," mother would take him in at once, and conceal and feed him, even though he had been very violent; and to tell the truth, so would both my sisters, and so indeed would I; whence it will be clear that we were not the sort of people to be safe among disturbances. Before I could quite make up my mind how to act in this difficulty, and how to get at the rights of it, for I would not spy after Uncle Reuben, though I felt no great fear of the wizard's slough, and none of the man with the white nightcap, a difference came again upon it, and a change of chances. For Uncle Ben went away as suddenly as he first had come to us, giving no reason for his departure, neither claiming the pony, and indeed leaving something behind him of great value to my mother. For he begged her to see to his young granddaughter until he could find opportunity of fetching her safely to Dulverton. Mother was overjoyed at this, as she could not help displaying, and Ruth was quite as much delighted, although she durst not show it. For at Dulverton she had to watch and keep such ward on the victuals, and the in and out of the shopmen, that it went entirely against her heart, and she never could enjoy herself. Truly she was an altered girl from the day she came to us, catching our unsuspicious manners, and our free goodwill, and hearty noise of laughing. By this time the harvest being done, and the thatching of the ricks made sure against southwestern tempests, and all the reapers being gone, with good money and thankfulness, I began to burn in spirit for the sight of Lorna. I had begged my sister Annie to let Sally Snowe know, once for all, that it was not in my power to have anything more to do with her. Of course our Annie was not to grieve Sally, neither to let it appear for a moment that I suspected her kind views upon me, and her strong regard for our dairy. Only I thought it right upon our part not to waste Sally's time any longer, being a handsome wench as she was, and many young fellows glad to marry her. And Annie did this uncommonly well, as she herself told me afterwards, having taken Sally in the sweetest manner into her pure confidence, and opened half her bosom to her, about my very sad love affair. Not that she let Sally know, of course, who it was, or what it was; only that she made her understand, without hinting at any desire of it, that there was no chance now of having me. Sally changed colour a little at this, and then went on about a red cow which had passed 7 needles at milking time. Inasmuch as there are 2 sorts of month well recognized by the calendar, to wit, the lunar and the solar, I made bold to regard both my months, in the absence of any provision, as intended to be strictly lunar. Therefore upon the very day when the 8 weeks were expiring, forth I went in search of Lorna, taking the pearl ring hopefully, and all the new laid eggs I could find, and 1.5 dozen of small trout from our brook. And the pleasure it gave me to catch those trout, thinking as every one came forth and danced upon the grass, how much she would enjoy him, is more than I can now describe, although I well remember it. And it struck me that after accepting my ring, and saying how much she loved me, it was possible that my queen might invite me even to stay and sup with her; and so I arranged with dear Annie beforehand, who was now the greatest comfort to me, to account for my absence if I should be late. But alas, I was utterly disappointed; for although I waited and waited for hours, with an equal amount both of patience and peril, no Lorna ever appeared at all, nor even the faintest sign of her. And another thing occurred as well, which vexed me more than it need have done, for so small a matter. And this was that my little offering of the trout and the new laid eggs was carried off in the coolest manner by that vile Carver Doone. For thinking to keep them the fresher and nicer, away from so much handling, I laid them in a little bed of reeds by the side of the water, and placed some dog leaves over them. And when I had quite forgotten about them, and was watching from my hiding place beneath the willow tree (for I liked not to enter Lorna's bower, without her permission, except just to peep that she was not there), and while I was turning the ring in my pocket, having just seen the new moon, I became aware of a great man coming leisurely down the valley. He had a broad brimmed hat, and a leather jerkin, and heavy jack boots to his middle thigh; and what was worst of all for me, on his shoulder he bore a long carbine. Having nothing to meet him withal but my staff, and desiring to avoid disturbance, I retired promptly into the chasm, keeping the tree betwixt us, that he might not descry me, and watching from behind the jut of rock, where now I had scraped myself a neat little hole for the purpose. Presently the great man reappeared, being